WWE Crown Jewel is this goddamn weekend, and we are going to be predicting the entire card for that, including, starting with the big Bloodline thing with 6-man tag. It's going to be Roman Reigns and the Usos versus Solo Sikoa and two of these three, Tama Tangaloa and what's his name, Jacob Fatu. Who have you got?
I've got the heels. We don't yet know the full extent of how unified Roman and the Usos are. We saw on Raw on Monday how Jimmy and Jay were pleased to be back together, but even Jay made it clear, like, not yet, there's like still a long way to go. I don't know what happens on SmackDown tonight that might bring the baby faces together, because they didn't spoil it by accident with this graphic. But I sense that Roman and the Usos will have found common ground ahead of this match, Phil, but you'll have to tune in to find out for yourself. I'm not best pleased about that.
No.
But I do think that'll factor in. Like, it's genuinely quite exciting, like, to see the Usos back together as a team for the first time in a year at this point.
Yeah.
With them in, like, you know, sort of like those prominent singles roles. Jay said on Raw, look, they don't confuse us anymore. That's true. Like, the WrestleMania match absolutely reeked, but they've both become solo stars in their own right. So it's going to be cool to see them finding a feet again as a tag team, like a miscommunication that might make it feel a bit tense all of a sudden. And ultimately, this feels like a primer for War Games.
Yes.
Either whether or not we're talking Tala Tonga, whether or not we're talking Sami Zayn, whether or not we're talking The Rock, like, the numbers are going to swell in time for the Survivor Series, and I just think the heels need it more.
Yeah, I am with you on this one, actually. I think it's more interesting to have the heels take this one, and I think there's a lot of things you can use within the match, like you say, to explain away Roman Reigns losing in a match, because he doesn't have to take the pin. I mean, obviously he's not going to take the pin.
Oh, it's all Jimmy Pinney. 100%.
It's all Jimmy getting the pin. But yeah, like, miscommunications between the Usos, them not quite being back on the same page entirely, whereas this kind of new Bloodline are thoroughly on the same page and kind of battle tested in a way. So yeah, I think that's much more interesting route to go.
Especially if you pick Tongaloa.
Yeah.
Who, because he's going to out-wrestle him.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the best punches in the business. But especially if there wasn't War Games obviously coming up, I'd be probably saying the other way. But you've got to build to that, and there's got to be some kind of tension going into that where they might lose, because they definitely might lose War Games. But yeah, bad guys all the way.
Bad guys for now.
But next up, we have the big women's tag team match thing, which is Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair versus Damage Control, which is Kairi Sane and Io Sky, versus The Metaphor, which is Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, versus Chelsea Green and Piper Niven.
I love that. Can we just start with that, by the way?
Chelsea Green.
I'm going to go for the upset on this one. Ooh. I'm going to go with Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. Somewhere Adam Wilborn is screaming with delight that I picked the NXT affiliated side. They've featured across Raw, SmackDown and NXT and not really been made to look like losers or rookies, or they lost to Bianca and Jade on television, but there's no shame in that because they're such dominant tag team champions. The Jade and Bianca match that exists on the horizon is the one thing making any of these matches suspenseful, realistically. When's going to be the time that they lose the titles, and then you get on with starting that build? I think they'll lose them before the Royal Rumble, because I think they will enter the Royal Rumble both with like nothing else to fight for other than that world title shot, and maybe
the inevitable face-off in the World Rumble.
Yeah, like a potential double elimination where they're both thrown out, and then that's you cost me, well no, you cost me, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In the meantime, as great as Chelsea and Piper Niven are, and kind of Chelsea Green in particular kind of like fights to get the airtime she gets in this sort of criminally underserved women's division. At this point, I think she's almost too reliable, and they feel like they don't need to give them the belts. Damage Control, realistically, like, Io Sky is great, but as a tag team, just they haven't had the matches in 2024, and when they have fought for the titles, they've been quite soundly beaten. Meanwhile, not that you'd know it from NXT, not mentioned it 50 times a broadcast, but NXT is extremely proud of its women's division, and while there is some quality, there's also a lot of quantity. If there's any show across all of WWE that actually supports a women's tag division, it's NXT. Like, by miles and miles and miles and miles, it's the best booked, like, women's division across WWE and AEW, I would say. I think the metaphor taking the belts back to NXT that actually exists as a soft launch for them onto the main roster happens here. It's not the type of show where they like to do too many major wacky title changes, but I think they get the upset. I think they score a win.
Interesting. I am going to go with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because, like you say, it's not the kind of show where they do big, wacky title changes, and I think there's another title change coming later on in this card that we'll get to. So I think they'll leave this as just the sort of feel-good, like, obvious star champions kind of standing tall at the end of this. As much as I desperately, desperately want Chelsea Green to win it, just because she's been an MVP of that women's division in terms of taking literally anything that they throw at her and making it amazing every single time. She's been so good and so consistent that I think she absolutely deserves something coming from this. But yeah, I don't think it's time for that. And I think they can get down. I think there's probably more money in the Lash Legend thing, the metaphor versus Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair as a sort of more showcase kind of thing, and then that will help the metaphor in the long run, because like maybe they lose here, but they're definitely not going to be taking the pin. It's probably going to be Chelsea Green. Let's face it. And then do that match at like the next show and sort of make more of a big deal out of the title change.
Yeah, possibly.
That's what I'm going for. But the next up, this is maybe the one that I think is going to be the title change. LA Knight versus months-long rivals Andrade and Carmelo Hayes.
Well, I'm interested then. So if you think there's going to be a title change, who have you got for this one? I want to be sold on this because I think this is LA Knight's game by a mile. And then we basically return to the cancelled Game 7. And they get back to fussing and feuding on SmackDown, and they both had title shots. As this Best of 7 has been going on, they've both had title shots.
Yeah.
So I thought this was an easy one for LA Knight.
That's my problem with this, is that they've both had title shots.
Yeah.
And the Best of 7 series kind of came to nothing, and it's like
it's not broken.
It's not great, but I feel like you need to pull the trigger on this sooner rather than later. And I think Carmelo Hayes going over makes the most amount of sense of cementing that guy on the main roster as a champion, as someone they're getting behind. Like the matches with Andrade have been great. Like regardless of where the booking ended up, the actual matches themselves have been wonderful.
I think it's his best run across WWE and NXT. Best run with Andrade.
And I think giving Carmelo Hayes the belt is the best way of extending this feud, not for too long, but enough that you can kind of get some proper closure on it in terms of he can have the match against LA Knight, he can win that. He can have the match against Andrade, like down the line, he can win that. And then move on away from this to go do other things.
Something else.
But like, if LA Knight wins, I just don't know where it leaves Andrade and Carmelo Hayes, because they're just like, well, you go back to fighting and then maybe get another title shot down the line. It doesn't, like, that side of things doesn't make any sense. I think Carmelo Hayes needs it more than Andrade.
I agree there, definitely. I think it kind of like cements what's been, like I say, like a strong run off the back of not being sure what you were really getting with Carmelo Hayes on the main roster. I just think LA Knight wins, and it's because the two that have been fighting simply cannot stop fighting. He gets to take advantage, moves on completely, and then Game 7 or whatever, I don't know, like loser leaves SmackDown, or they end up fighting for a place in the Royal Rumble or something like that. They're able to like attach a different prize on because they return to that final match. Maybe the actual final of that series like takes place on Survivor Series itself. They're given the platform because the SmackDown series has been like I wouldn't say critically acclaimed, but people have like sort of gone like done the Lenny from The Simpsons like the longer it's gone on, the matches have sort of gotten
quietly appreciated.
Yeah, very much.
Critically acclaimed.
Or we just go full bar and it's like Sheamus and Cesaro and they end up as a tag team.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of like they've fought mutual respect into each other, and they end up sort of like padding out the ranks in that SmackDown tag division now underneath the Motor City Machine Guns. You know, there's a bit of rejigging there, but I think LA Knight kind of escapes this one with the belt.
Interesting times. Let us know down in the comments below who you think is going to be winning it. But moving over to friendship fighting, Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, a potential for match of the night, I reckon, with this one. Stealing the show. Who have you got?
I've got Kevin Owens I've got Kevin Owens absolutely destroying Randy Orton. Now, whether or not that's to win the match or to get disqualified, I don't know, but I think this is going to be ugly. They, using Triple H, sold the current version of Kevin Owens as someone even Randy Orton at his point in his career would not want to interact with, let alone wrestle. And we are coming up on 10 years since Kevin Owens first debuted in WWE. And the idea that you've got this character that otherwise should feel like as stale as old bread has in fact been completely reborn as a different kind of heel than he ever was. Triple H made the point of saying Kevin Owens turns on all of his partners, but something is different. Like the reason I sent him home is because the way he turned on Cody, the way he has turned on you, something has changed in him. And it's obviously about this babyface version of the Bloodline warping his perspective of everybody. And that indeed might come up later on in the card, which is why I'm certainly having Kevin Owens getting very het up getting very angry, again, if he's disqualified for what he does. I could see, again, 10 years on from his first turn on Sami Zayn, there was discussion of Triple H not wanting Orton to get injured again. I could see that ginormous muscular back being powerbombed against the apron, possibly for a stoppage. Randy Orton on a stretcher, if you want to go that far. Something along those lines, where Kevin Owens basically proves Triple H right, and like that Randy Orton shouldn't have been as arrogant to think that he could just like fight his old mate. This is a different beast in Kevin Owens, especially because it kind of puts him right in Cody's crosshairs coming out of Crown Jewel as well.
I like it. You've completely convinced me.
Great.
I'm not going to add anything to that because I got nothing better. So I'm going to go with that. What he said, basically, I think this Kevin Owens turn has been the most like justified heel turn in a long time, in terms of like you can actually see where he's coming from. Like he's got logical points that have led to this moment.
I'm dreading Sami Zayn getting with Roman. What's Kevin going to do to Sammy if he joins back up with Roman?
And in Kevin Owens' head, he is completely justified in his actions, and he can't figure out why other people can't see it the way that he sees it. And it all makes sense. And for him to flip out on this, I think is the absolute perfect continuation of this, because it's obviously not going to be the end.
No, absolutely not.
There's going to be more of this, so they need to keep it going for that, and I like that. And then that would lead into what is likely going to be shenanigans in the main event.
Exactly,
It's going to be. But before we get to that, another match that has the potential of stealing the show, it is the battle of the nicknamed people, frickin' Rollins versus Big Bronson Reed. Who have you got?
I don't know. I think probably Seth Rollins, because they had Bronson and Braun kill each other across Raw venues and gave Braun the win in the end, and Bronson Reed was more than able to recover from it. All of this started, and by all of this, I don't just mean this Fued, I mean Bronson Reed's bizarre success story of a mini push in late 2024 came as a result of that really impressive heavy heat angle where he just kept hitting the tsunami. Apparently that was like a Triple H on the fly call to be like, do 6. And it couldn't have gone any better for him. This is the big test though. Like every week, it feels like a sort of tightrope for Paul Bronson Reed. Where it's just, whoa, like, is he going to fall off? Is this going to be the week where, like, all of this potential and all this like chaos? They're giving him the kind of the old Braun Strowman wacky car park stunt stuff.
The more legitimate legitimacy to it, I guess.
The bell's going to ring. Like, this is Seth Rollins. Like one of his only real singles matches in 2024. He's single figures, I would say, but he considers himself whatever a version of a ring general in WWE is. I think Seth Rollins considers himself the one. The idea that like there is a certain style, a house style that they like, and he's one of the masters of it. And I think he will see this as a bit of a test to win, lose or draw. He will see this as a test of being able to preserve what they've created in this aura, kind of out of nowhere with Bronson Reed. So I can see him winning, but I think from a professional point of view, he will be looking at this to over-deliver as a match, because I have my concerns about this being the point of the card where the fans choose to go for a drink or just settle down a little bit. These, for everything else surrounding these shows, WWE do at least seem to have like a strong fan base that enjoys going to the shows and responding to the stars. Seth Rollins is going to be almost over people on this entire card. And I think he's going to hope that carries over and it like a bit of Seth dust sprinkles onto Bronson Reed.
It needs to be more than just an entrance.
Yes. This needs to be good.
And it's not got that like inbuilt intrigue of it being like a last man standing or falls count anywhere or something like that to it. But I guess for me it depends where they're going with Seth after this, because if they're going straight into a CM Punk thing, you need Seth to be strong and get the win. But if they're going to hold off on that for a while, then maybe they need Bronson to do this. But it also very much depends, like you were saying, it's getting that kind of Braun Strowman push. The problem with the Braun Strowman push is it never like justified. It never got to the top place, really, of like push. There you go. There's the goal. And if they're gonna like, you can push Bronson Reed to a certain point, but if you're not gonna tip him over the edge, then where's that push going to?
He ends up being dancing fool, doesn't he? In 3 years' time.
So it depends where their sort of thoughts align with where this is going. It's not necessarily about this match itself. It's about what's next for both of these people.
Totally.
But I'm gonna go with you. Like if you hadn't pitched me on the shenanigans finish, like the non-finish to the Kevin Owens Randy Orton match, I'd say this would be where the non-finish is. Where they just end up like the brawling gets too much for the both of them. They end up like brawling out the building and it's like double count out and it all gets thrown out. But you can't do that twice in one show. Although, well, WWE really likes shenanigan finishes at the
They
minute.
do. It's for TV as well, isn't it? It buys them a Raw main event or something, you know,
Yeah.
like they're not afraid of extending it. Yeah.
So I guess maybe if you do an injury angle in the Kevin Owens Randy Orton one, and then you do a match thrown out one on this, and it's all like, oh my god, what's happening to WWE? It's all chaos. Attitude Era.
Until we get home and everything's
Until we
fine.
get home and everything's fine.
Actually, having said that, you know, they are taping Raw in Saudi Arabia on the Sunday, I think. So if they were to have this
They
thrown
are
out
indeed.
on Crown Jewel, you could actually do the rematch and deliver, I would imagine, a similar amount of fans the finish.
Yeah.
By having the rematch take place on Raw. It's like they couldn't be controlled at Crown Jewel, but we're gonna what was it again? It was in Saudi Arabia. What was the Seth Rollins Fiend branding 5 Crown Jewels ago, where it's something like match can't end until wrestler wins. It was basically a promise that you get a finish.
Yeah.
They could do that on the Raw rematch 24 hours later. So
Yeah.
not impossible, actually.
New prediction for this. They wrestle off into the crowd or something, like backstage, they disappear and like, oh my god, where have they gone? I guess we better get on with the show. Then on Raw, they're still fighting, and they're
Love
still
that.
going through the building, and
Love
then they
it.
come back to the ring, and then we get like an impromptu match, and we get the finish there. That's my new prediction for this.
I
The match
love it.
lasts 24 hours. That's where I'm going with.
And it still doesn't feel as long as a Triple H WrestleMania.
Next up, we have the Women's Championship big bout thing, the champion versus champion. It's Liv Morgan versus Nia Jax, heel versus heel, which is an interesting dynamic to this one.
Yeah.
Both with partners that could do some shenanigans, and they love interferences at the minute.
It is the weaker of the two Crown Jewel title matches on paper, because as you say, it's heel versus heel. I think people looked, I don't like these circumstances. These two belts and these matches feel like Triple H is a kind of fastidious plotter, and these matches feel kind of thrust upon his plot, and he's tried, in some cases quite successfully, in the case of the one we'll talk about next, to try and make a story out of something that probably wasn't like on his wish list anytime soon.
Yeah.
And I think he's just not tried as hard with these. The women's division, what a shock. However, the one thing that I think will be a huge source of drama on the night is, of course, Tiffany Stratton's Money in the Bank briefcase. What they have done quite a tactically astute job with is really ramping up just how much of a bastard Nia Jax has been to Tiffany Stratton, right? They're strangling her and the bullying her, and they're saying, well, if you're going to cash in, it's a perfect opportunity, right? And then, like, Tiffany's like, what do you mean? Because I'm facing Liv Morgan and I'll squash her. So I fully expect a moment where both women are down, flat somehow, and Tiffany Stratton's there with a briefcase and the crowd are going nuts, and it's like, I can cash in, I can cash in. I would quite like her to be holding the briefcase and it'd be sort of looking at one body, looking at the other body, looking at the other body, and then like hands the briefcase over, prepared to cash in. And then Nia Jax sits up and Tiffany, I was going for Liv Morgan the whole time. And then
Dominic runs in.
And then Dominic makes a save. We've got a full sort of extended Crown Jewel preview coming to the WhatCulture Wrestling podcast channel later on, and Cedric had an amazing visual. I know these belts are probably going to stay in Saudi Arabia for next year, but the idea of Dominic Mysterio carrying around this possibly obnoxious, massive Crown Jewel title that Liv Morgan won is quite a nice character bit for him, which I also quite like.
That is good. But then the whole Queen Nia Jax thing also fits in with the big stupid belt.
It does. So all that's to say, I actually think there will be drama here, even if it's not particularly between these two.
Yeah.
And I'll go with, on account of the fact that she's just been given the sort of dishonour, I guess, of writing out Rhea Ripley along with Raquel Rodriguez, I'll go with Liv Morgan. I think Nia Jax is part of a SmackDown Women's division that's marginally better than the Raw one, and Liv and Raquel have just bloodied Rhea. I think this should give Liv that sort of confidence that she's better than ever. And with no Rhea Ripley on Raw, that gives her it's a WWE word, but momentum into a story with somebody else, and not before time. She needs someone else to wrestle for a bit. This Judgment Day stuff is kind of past its peak.
Yeah.
So she comes back to Monday Night Raw the following night and in the following weeks to come and stuff. Maybe even if they want to do a women's war game, wants to lead the team as the women's champion that's won this big match, basically makes herself the leader of the female heel team or something for women's war games. Just something that lifts her away from Rhea Ripley and makes her a champion again on her own terms.
Yeah. At the same time as you saying that though, I do think the Rhea injury, because the news is that Rhea Ripley's got a new injury. I don't know what it is or how serious it is yet, but I think that's definitely going to have changed the plans for this.
Yeah, maybe.
I assume at some point there was going to be Rhea Ripley costing Liv Morgan in this match for Nia Jax to win it.
Yeah.
I just assume that's the kind of direction that they were going to be going for. So now I think they're going to be scrambling to figure out, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And I think because of that, it's the hardest to predict this, because you could easily, very feasibly go both ways. and not really make a difference to either person, because there's no chance no chance in the world that this is a clean finish. Like, there's too much stuff going on the outside between Dominic Mysterio and Tiffany Stratton for it to be a clean finish. It's just not going to happen. So personally, it's just, which way do you want to go with it? I was leaning towards Liv Morgan, but just for the sort of interest of mixing it up, going against each other, I'm going to go Nia Jax.
She does pretty cool annihilators in these big matches.
She does
as well.
Indeed. There'll be something big.
Stacks up Liv and Dominic and annihilators both of them or something.
There's plenty of ways of having shenanigans around and protecting Liv Morgan and making it a freak win in a way, blah, 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 whatever you want. But yeah, I'm going to go with Nia Jax, just the Annihilator, the Queen Nia with the big stupid belt all fixed in. Yeah. And then leading it. I think there's definitely going to be teasers for the Money in the Bank, like you say. I don't think it's going to happen here. I don't think they... Well, not waste a moment like that in Saudi, but I don't think they use a moment like that.
They've got a plan, haven't they? Wherever it's happening, they've got a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go with Nia Jax just to keep it interesting. Why not?
All right.
But the main event of the evening, one would assume, Cody Rhodes versus Gunther, champion versus champion. The best booked champion versus champion match on this card, just because Cody and Gunther have somehow managed to pull it out of their ass.
Yeah, well, pulling it out.
Specifically Gunther, I think, in this.
Pulling it out of your ass is right, because this is an all-timer polished turd. Like, I didn't want to watch this match now. I didn't want it for this show. I didn't want it for this stupid, ugly belt.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted this match. Who doesn't want this match? Like, WWE gave you, like, 2 years in a row now with Punk and Gunther. They've given you, like, extended previews of awesome Cody Rhodes singles matches. So, like, ever since then, people have been waiting for the time to come. And, like, don't get me wrong, coming off the back of this, there's another day for this match when it's just for one title or for something that matters, ultimately. But they have done an incredible job, especially, like, sort of last week's SmackDown, where Gunther started, like, accusing Cody of wrestling for other people other than himself and saying, look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a selfish world champion. I think you're doing it because you're insecure. You're so desperate to be John Cena that you try and live his stupid life. Why? Like, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone, but you're always doing it for somebody else. And I think that's, like, ultimately going to factor into all of this. Like, if Cody was to win, and after kind of having to sort of sustain all this criticism, that's that kind of like hubristic babyface stuff that ultimately cursed John Cena's run. Yeah. He would say, I'm better than you, I'm the best, I'm Superman, and then win easily. And then Total X, well done, John. Like, this kid's had one shot before, nice work. It's Neville Southall and Michael Owen every single pay-per-view. But like, Cody losing as a result of like almost like the weight of expectation being too great. Gunther's words like, you're a servant to this company, like you do, well done for making breakfast TV, big deal. Do you know what I do? I go to the gym, I train harder and I kick ass. Like, he's even putting the belt over. Like when Seth Rollins had it, like this toy belt suddenly has significance because the champion cares about it.
Yeah.
This is discounting that Kevin Owens will probably want to get involved, will probably want to do something. Again, like this is a Michael Sidgwick take, so I don't want to steal it, but he suggested that they like have Owens do some sort of attack on Cody at some point during the show. So he's coming out hurt, so he's a wounded champion from the off. That's like a way to maybe protect him in defeat if you don't want to just do a simple cheat running.
Yeah.
And I just think, Gunther, they used to do this, bad example of a good thing, when there was a lot of Raw and SmackDown stuff once upon a time, and SmackDown was clearly the inferior show, they would often give SmackDown wins to make it pretend as if it's level. Gunther makes this feel level, but the belts are what they are, and Gunther getting the win and being the first to hold this title, I think is better for like him and better for the aura of that title and all that sort of stuff. I just cannot see a way in which Cody wins this and it works.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I really like the idea of, because like going into this, I was just assuming shenanigan finish in terms of there's someone comes in and like there's some kind of distraction and it's that kind of a finish to give Cody the excuse of that, but also to tie into War Games and to tie in the Kevin Owens and the sort of breaking down of that friendship and things, tie into that story to go forwards. Like, it makes sense in like a WWE way, but I would much prefer Gunther to just win this clean somehow, because I think that it gives a huge statement in terms of like Gunther, like look at this guy, he's got this, he can use this as well for months afterwards. It's like, it's not quite as big as like ending the Undertaker's streak or something, but it's like, it's a thing he can use.
I took out the poster boy.
Exactly, like your big shining star, your big babyface hero, like who is that guy? Look at me, I'm Gunther.
I want him to like trace his finger across the dream tattoo and then use it as a target to chop. It's like, oh, you're doing it for your dad. Here's what I think of your dad. Bang, like that. Just the fun they could have with this.
Yeah.
As like similar but different guys and like why they're in the roles they're in.
Yeah.
I look forward to them exploring that chemistry. Definitely.
Yeah. So as a different way of not doing the distraction finish or whatever, that idea of Kevin Owens doing something backstage, specifically after the Orton match, and he's like hot and heavy and like heated, like pissed off, and then goes backstage, and then Cody comes up to him to say something like, to offer an olive branch or something, like something about like, let's rebuild this relationship kind of thing, like how have we got to this point, like we used to be best friends kind of thing, like trying to extend that olive branch to bring the friendship back, and then Kevin Owens just kind of going like full nutso on him because he's already hot and heavy after that match.
Despite Cody having a little chat with Jey Uso or something.
Yeah,
I say, what the fuck are you talking to him for?
Exactly, something like that where he goes off on him to give Cody that like excuse of being a little bit hurt, because I think they're gonna want something like that in this match, aren't they? They're not gonna just want two top tier healthy guys to go out there and then Cody lose. Yeah, like, that's just not gonna happen.
Goldberg.
Goldberg. Good point from Andy Murray. There's always time for Goldberg.
There is always time for Goldberg.
Well, I mean, there's always money for Goldberg. Let's be realistic. That's
the thing.
Time works against Goldberg typically, but
that's the thing with this match, though. Is like right from the beginning, people were trying to figure out what the distraction was going to be, and it was Goldberg originally. They were doing the stuff with Gunther and Goldberg, but now the reports are that Goldberg isn't booked for the show, so he's probably not going to be there. So then you go the other way. Well, maybe it's Kevin Owens, and it's like they swap the winner, and you have the shenanigans that way. It's like, why can't this just be two guys going out there to see who's best?
I love your attitude towards it.
Why can't it be? This. God damn it. Cody can lose, it's fine. He'll be absolutely fine. He's Cody goddamn Rhodes.
Clean in the middle is what you say.
Yeah, clean in the middle. Gunther, why the hell not? Let's do it. Let's make a goddamn statement, everybody.
Change.
And let's send the crowd home not happy.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm saying. I know that the match that I really want to predict is one that we don't have a graphic for, which is yet again the fascinating political war of what's going to go on last. It's like Bad Blood when it was like the Bloodline got the last match over Punk and Drew. I liked it that way around because I knew Punk and Drew would steal the show from underneath whatever went on last. Same thing happening again here. It's Cody versus Roman behind the scenes. Not only do they want to get the last spot, they're also going to have one of the best spots. I love this. Like, this is what you want around WrestleMania season when they're going to be in the mix, and it's before the friggin' final bosses come back to tear apart.
But this is also us booking both of the bad guys winning in both of those matches.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't really matter which one goes.
Yeah, they still have to lose.
You're still sending the crowd home like, oh god.
That's true. Yeah. No, I want as much sort of backstage news as possible on the fights that were had over who got the last spot of the night. I love it.
Or one of those things where like Roman has to go in on first, but gets like 2 minutes extra.
The biggest pyro entrance he's ever had. Like he's got like a Bloodline glove that he's got because he's not got the red one, he's got like a gold one, but it shoots pyro out of it. So when he puts his thumb in the air, like. Saw a video about the firework going off somebody's hand yesterday. It's been on my mind ever since. Well,
it's the Triple H thing of it might not have gone on last, but I goddamn had the longest match.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But that is it. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know down in the comments below what you predict for all of this card and whether you agree with us or disagree with us or hate our guts or like us. Whatever. Get it in there. I don't mind. More after that, click the video that's on the screen to continue on your YouTube journey.
There it is.
There it is. And have yourselves a bloody good day.